afternoon, everybody. My name is Lisa McGovern. I'm the director of the Bronxville Senior Citizens, and I welcome you to the 2024 Mary B. Turino Art Show and Lecture. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Art Show Committee for all of their hard work putting this event together, especially Loretta D. Simone, Mary Liz Mulligan, Liz Delgado, Adrian Bailey Beck, Kathy Hurley, and Ann Kelty. I also wish to thank Beth McKeegan from the Community Fund for bringing the youth volunteers here today, John and the Bronxville Library for hosting us, Emily Layton for assisting us each year, and to Gary Miller for recording the event for us. We have many talented artists in this community, and we are delighted to be able to showcase the work of over 50 local senior citizen artists here today. This event is made possible by the Charles A. Mastronardi Foundation and the Turino family in honor of their beloved mother, Mary. Mary Turino was one of the original organizers of the Senior Citizens Council and also served as BSC director in the early days. Mary and her husband, Bill, were very active in the BSC. They both loved art and had several entries in earlier art shows, lectures, and receptions. After Mary passed away, her family wanted to gift the Bronxville seniors in Mary's memory and provided a very generous grant. This grant was awarded in 2018, and this is the 5th annual art show. We missed 2 due to COVID. The Turino family has generously expanded the scope of their grant, and now there are art classes offered at the Bronxville Senior Citizens being supported by the grant. We welcome David Turino and the family here today and thank them for their continued support of this wonderful event. Now, please join me in welcoming Bronxville Village trustee Bill Fredericks to the podium. Thank you.
Well, one of the privileges of being a Bronxville trustee is that every now and then our mayor, Mary Marvin, is unable to make an event, and we get to pinch hit for her. The mayor sends her very best wishes to the Bronxville seniors and to everyone here. She had another family commitment. So you get one of the understudies at today's matinee performance. In any event, it's a particular pleasure to be here today at an event honoring and remembering Mary Turino. She and my mother were rough contemporaries for many years here in Bronxville, and though I can't say that I have any particularly fond or otherwise memories of Ms. Turino, it was certainly a name that I heard. She's a former president of the Bronxville Junior League, as well as founder and director of the Bronxville Senior Citizens. And I think it's just wonderful that we have an event like this to remember her. I want to thank Lisa McGovern and Bronxville Senior Citizens for all they do here in the greater Bronxville community. And what a really wonderful art show we have here in this room, which I understand is still up until October 30th for any who may not have a chance yet to have seen it. In any event, it's now my great pleasure to welcome our speaker, Rory Mulligan. Rory is a true Bronxville native, having been born in Lawrence Hospital, and can't get more native than that for sure, and having grown up at the Mulligan home with his 3 siblings, I think on Sturgis Road, have I got that?
No, that was my house is on Sturgis Road.
Well,
2020.
Well, having grown up here in the village, congratulations to Roy for having survived the experience here. Roy attended St. Joseph's School here in the village, and then graduated from Fordham Prep, and then went on to Fordham University, where, if I've got this right, you first began your serious interest in photography as an undergraduate. Then it was on to Yale for an MFA, and today he is an assistant teaching professor of art across the river in New Jersey at Drew University, and has also taught other venues at Princeton. His work has been exhibited nationally and internationally and is included in the permanent collections of, inter alia, one of my very favorite museums, the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Currently, he has an exhibit in Grand Central Terminal's East and West dining courses down in the lower level. And I've glanced at them and enjoyed them in the past. My office isn't too far away from Grand Central, but I'm glad to say the exhibit is still up. So if any of you are in Grand Central and have not yet seen it, it's really a vibrant collection of photographs of birds. I'll let Rory speak more to that if he so wishes, but I don't know when the exhibit is coming down, but if you're in Grand Central, go down to the lower level. It's in the east and west sides of the dining concourse down there, and I think it'd be well worth a trip. Rory's works have been published by J&L Books, Blind Spot, Matt, Soft Copy, and the New York Times Magazine, among others. His writing has appeared in 2 Aperture books, The Photographer's Playbook and Photo No-Nos, great title. And I understand a monograph related to your work is in publication, hopefully coming out next year. In any event, Rory has lectured at Yale, at Princeton, at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, the International Center of Photography, and we're delighted to have him back in Bronxville today to deliver the 5th annual Mary Turino Lecture. Rory Mulligan.
Thank you all. Thank you, Trustee Bill Fredericks, for the introduction. Thank you to the Bronxville senior citizens and the Turino family for having me and inviting me here. My family and friends, it's nice to see you all. And here we go. So as Bill did mention, my first interest in photography did come through my exposure to the darkroom at Fordham University at Lincoln Center in 2004. And it was a bit coincidental. A friend was taking a class and she invited me to come down with her to develop a roll of film. And immediately I was entranced by the space. And I had changed my major 4 times. And the fifth time to visual art was the decisive one. So I usually don't include these in my lectures anymore, but I figured since back here in Bronxville, you will probably recognize some of these places. These are for my senior thesis exhibition. And for these, I was coming back home, photographing around Bronxville and Yonkers with a large format 4x5 view camera. It's a pretty burdensome camera. Each negative is 4x5 inches large. You can only take 1 shot at a time, but you get great detail, quality, tonal range. And I was photographing these spaces at night. And so I apologize, most of these reproductions, I don't have the best digital reproductions of these. But I think it's just interesting because one of those interesting qualities of photography is that it does document and kind of make a mark of things that disappear, such as this building that you probably recognize. And then this one as well that was behind the train station on the New York side. So at this point, my interests were very much in a sort of filmic, atmospheric, textural quality of photography. And I wasn't so much interested in the kind of faster, more humanistic qualities of photography that my professors were espousing and practicing at the time. So, you know, it felt a bit like I was kind of on my own in a way in terms of my practice throughout undergrad. But after I graduated, I immediately started working at a darkroom in Soho called Black and White on White, where I printed for other black and white photographers. And here, it's kind of where my education crystallized, and the specificity of my education became very clear to me. And it all kind of centered around this one photographer, Gary Winogrand. And he is kind of best known as the godfather of, and he hated this term, but street photography. So he is a native New Yorker from the Bronx, and he was an incredibly prolific 35 millimeter handheld photographer, obsessed with being out in the world, capturing whatever was in front of him. He had many kind of famous aphorisms about photography, one of them being, I take a picture of something to see what it looks like as a photograph. And so, you know, he works from the real world, but acknowledges this transformative quality of photography. And the photograph is something different from the real world. And so he was mentor to all of my educators. And so all of my education was really being kind of funneled through this Winograndian prism, for better or for worse. And so, you know, it's a very specific kind of photography, as you can see. This is another, I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of famous photographs by him. These are just a few of my favorites. This one in particular, just because of the chaotic nature of it, I think in the hands of a lesser photographer, this photograph would be about the little girl in the foreground. But instead, it's about everyone in the frame, the chaos of the scene, the reporters, the angry hard hats, the signs, the flags, the passersby on the right just trying to get to work, the buildings in the back. And, you know, he's not really making judgments here. Not to say he didn't have opinions, but he is observing and interested in the formal qualities of the photograph first. So one of his main mentees was Todd Papageorge, and Todd ran the MFA department at Yale from 1979 until, I believe, 2012. And his work at Central Park was titled Passing Through Eden. It was made over 25 years. And I printed this work for him at the lab, first in its book form, which took about a year. And it was an incredibly grueling and meticulous process. But I would say that it is the one artist that I worked with that really taught me how to see prints in a different way, and also taught me what I wanted my work to look like and how I wanted it to feel. It was not easy. It wasn't pleasant. I would not do it again at this stage in my life, but I am grateful for it. So the quality of my work at this point definitely shifted quite a bit. I started, you know, working in the city a lot more. started working with handheld cameras again. And I was very much kind of taken by this idea of the street as a stage, and life itself as theater. And so, I was working full time, but I used my lunch breaks and weekends to shoot. And so I was constantly out there, just trying to make photos. And it was an exhausting, but also kind of a, when I look back, a romantic period of my life. I had full access to the best darkroom in New York, free film developing. So, I was either out photographing or at work. So some of these photographs are the ones that I ended up applying to Yale with. And I waited 2 years in between Fordham and applying to Yale. And Yale was the only graduate school I applied to. I just knew it was the only program I was interested in. A lot of other programs were very much more conceptually based, studio-based practice. That really didn't interest me. And it felt like the only place where I would have some sort of space. At the same time, I was pretty terrified to go. This was 2008. And at the time, pretty much no one of note was working in analog black and white, working out in the street. It was not the style of photography that was in fashion in the art world at all. And at Yale, large format, color, staged photographs, tableau-like photographs were really the norm. And so I just thought I was gonna go there and be eviscerated. Even though I thought, someone will get it, maybe. So I think this is, so this is a very, very condensed selection of one project, probably my major project of the past, from 2008 to 2020. I've worked on several in this period, but this is the book that I've been working on. To give you an idea, the book has around 90 images in it. I think I have around 15 here. So this started at Yale. I didn't really know what it was exactly when I was there. But one of the challenges that I faced and that I was cognizant of even when I was starting at Yale was, figuring out my place in the history of photography and negotiating with my place in terms of the specific history and practice that I was emulating of this black and white street photography. Winogrand was dead. Arbus was dead. These artists were either gone, not practicing, and at the end of the day, also just had vastly different life experiences than me. And so I decided, I really need to do something to make this medium my own. And so I didn't want to give up the process. I'd put way too much into it. And by the time I got to Yale, I was, had enough of a reputation as a printer that I did not want to give up the process. So I decided to keep going with it, but to start to kind of bring my own voice to the medium and bring my own story to the pictures. And so I started coming back here, actually, again, like I did in undergrad. And a lot of the work ended up taking place within walking distance of the house that I grew up in. Some of the photographs, I went back to my high school to take some photographs there. And in this project, I call it Freddie, for my friend who passed away right at the time I was starting graduate school. It's, you know, a sort of, not an homage, but a reckoning, I guess, with his death, but also with my own journey, my own identity, as a person, also as an artist, and, you know, kind of dealing with that back in the space of my childhood, and trying to deal with things that I maybe hadn't dealt with when I was younger. And so that spirit of being out in the world and discovering things, that never abated. But I just knew that something had to kind of shift. And so I decided that one of those things would be to start introducing portraiture and self-portraiture. So that began in 2008. And this was one of my first self-portraits taken along the Bronx River. And I used a lot of direct flash at night at this time. And then portraits started to come into the mix as well. And through all of this, it kind of started to create this new rhythm, and eventually what I found to be a new sort of language, where I would set up this recognizable world of documentary photography, and then punctuate it with these unexpected portraits of other men and self-portraits of myself, and kind of surprise the viewer out of this sort of expected documentary, black and white, silver gelatin print world that they've known forever. And so the individual photographs, you know, stand on their own, but it's really the way that they're weaved together and edited and sequenced that kind of brings all the ingredients together like a soup or something. So I'm still in the darkroom processing my film, making all of my prints at this point. This photograph taken in graduate school, something like this. Some of these are taken afterwards. So I started teaching first in 2011. I taught my first class at Drew. And I was also printing at the lab part-time. So I had a few years where I was working 5 or 6 days a week, printing and adjuncting. And as you can imagine, it was a blast. It was really, really rewarding. So it was a really exhausting and totally unsustainable period of my life, which is thankfully over. But, you know, I still managed to somehow make work. And I think that actually that period that was a little bit fallow was really helpful for me in that I was able to reflect upon this huge amount of work I'd made over the past decade plus. Because, I'm editing down from thousands and thousands of photographs. For each image that you see, I made, probably 100 work prints in the darkroom that are rejects. I'd say this is also a period of my life where I'm not really saying no to a photograph if I see something. And I think that that's something else that's kind of changed for me. And something that was definitely changing as we approached COVID, as I quit the lab and the prices of film and paper had just literally tripled. And it had totally stalled my practice. And, the silver printing, shooting film just became something that was hindering me rather than, something that was helping me anymore. And so in 2020, I made a decision that was pretty scary for me at the time. I had spent 15 almost years developing my reputation, trying to balance my reputation as an artist, but also as a printer. And trying to not let the printing side become more prominent, because I did not want to become seen as just a technical person. And so I decided to switch to digital. And then the quarantine happened. And so wandering out in the world, making portraits, not really things that were happening. But at the same time, I didn't really want to do that anymore. And I knew I had to change things. And, the artists that I respect are ones that change and evolve. And so if I was getting tired of what I was doing, why would I just keep doing it? So something that had become more a part of my life, especially, pre-COVID, but then especially during lockdown, was the environment and our local environment. And so I started looking just literally in my backyard. I moved to Hastings on Hudson in 2014. And, I've become habitat, and pretty involved species, with planting native plants. And also, I've just grown a deep connection with the birds in my backyard. But it's, when we were really cut off from everything, they're really a wonderful presence and a joyful, fleeting encounter. They'd come, get their little food, fly away. You begin to learn their different quirks and personalities. Each species has different behavior, but then you see each individual bird has different behaviors. And so, I decided that I want to collaborate with the birds. So the title for the project now is called Auguries, which is taken from the ancient Roman practice of auguries. This is just a quote from Livy, the Roman historian, which just points to how important the practice, which was, these were priests who were assigned to read the weather, animal behavior, but especially the arrival and behavior of birds to predict fate and to plan Roman military quests and to do any sort of major planning. So the backdrop for all of my pictures, is obviously in Hastings. And, these are a couple of paintings from the Hudson River School painters. This is from 1856 by John Ludlow Martin. This is 1888, Jasper Cropsey, who lived in Hastings. His estate is still there. You can visit it, it's a museum. This is also a painting of Hastings from 1888, and there are these, idealized visions of this unspoiled nature. And, Hastings is still a very beautiful place, but I find it interesting too that this is a postcard from 1850, and it's of the Hudson River Steam Sugar Refinery, which was right on the water in Hastings at the same time, spewing out all of this billowing smoke. And so, there's this kind of erasure of reality and industrialization that's happening all at the same time here. So this is my backyard. You can see the Palisades in the back, the Hudson in the foreground here. Oh, sorry, just at the bottom, and then we have a number of grackles and red-winged blackbirds in the cherry tree. And so behind all of the photos I take, this is what's literally behind it. And so, the Hudson for me, it's literally there, but it's also symbolic as this site of natural beauty, but also environmental devastation and humanity's ability to create art, but also to completely destroy what has been given to us by nature. So this in particular is directly behind my backyard across the railroad tracks. And it's now a Superfund site. So this was the Zinsser chemical plant. It operated until 1955. And they actually, you can see the date here, November 9th, 1918. They were just commissioned at this point by the federal government to produce mustard gas. And so 200 National Guardsmen were stationed in Hastings to protect the plant, but the armistice was signed 2 days later, so it never came to fruition. But the plant went on to produce dyes and, funnily enough, photographic chemistry. But it was ultimately passed hands to the Harshaw Chemical Company, and then it belonged to ExxonMobil until the 80s, and it's now a Superfund site and incredibly toxic. So the land itself is also a landfill. It's not actually natural land here. So it's this, at the same time, it's this really gorgeous meadow that I love to photograph and I love spending time in. This is, I'm not going to read this, don't worry. You don't have to read it either. But this is, you can look up the information from the state about it. It's also, it's locked off, but it's a very popular site for locals that teenagers, but also adults, sneak in all the time. And so these are just some photographs that I've taken in that space. And I'm not quite sure how they fit in yet, but for right now, I guess they're more contextual. This was taken during the Canadian wildfires a couple summers ago. It's really hard to take. I had my N95 on, and I had to be pretty quick. But it's not edited. That's just how it looked. But it really encapsulated, my thinking of birds as these symbols of beauty, but also the most vulnerable among us. And, their declining numbers are, today, it's like, that's the sign. They're not landlocked. They can go anywhere in the world, but yet their numbers have been destroyed. And if there's any clearer sign of our environment in peril, it's birds. And so, you can see it here. They're just kind of bobbing along, seemingly unaware, and it's just very tragic. So these are just a couple of early attempts at working with the birds. I wasn't really sure what to do. But, it was exciting just to kind of get close to them. You start to see their personalities. And then I just had this kind of vision of creating something more kind of painterly and introducing fabric and creating these kind of seamless scenes where it's just these fabric backdrops and birds at feeders. And so this was the first one I made in 2021. And these are chronological from here on out. And they're all natural light, and there's no digital compositing, so everything that you see is happening in front of the camera. But, I also, as you can see, kind of got bored with the entire seamless thing and like to show how the sausage is made. All of the clamps and light stands. You can see kind of the plants and the fence behind everything. Grackles are pretty nasty. You project all of this onto them, but then, I'm out here for hours and days with them, and you begin to just see that they're kind of like us, and they fight with each other. The red-bellied woodpecker is fearless, and will go after anything that tries to come near its food. You can see it trying to fend off this catbird over here. And so even though, I think of them as these innocent little creatures, they are still animals. And I have a couple here that are just closer to just being still lifes. And there are no birds in them. It's very frustrating because they're just, it wasn't the plan. Just no birds came. But, the more I thought of it, the more significant it seemed to just have these photographs where there are no birds. Because it seems like kind of a prescient omen. Sorry, this one hurts the eyes. Sorry if I'm moving a little quickly. I know I'm over time. So these last ones are all from this year. And I think they reflect kind of my general direction. Looking back at the older ones, they feel very kind of rudimentary to me now. A bit like sketches, and there's so much I would change, but I am happy about where everything's headed. The male cardinal is like impossible. I know I got him earlier, but it will never come into the frame. So I was so happy. And all the fruit, it's for all of them, but I've been trying to get the Baltimore Oriole to come into frame, and they won't. And as you can see, I'm obviously, fabric is still a part of this, but I'm introducing more sculptural elements into the photographs, just kind of finding things on the curb, in the apartment, throwing them together. My old photographs. This is deceased. It's a crow. I think it's an American crow. It could be a fish crow. But it's really hard to tell without this sound, without the call. But I tried to give it some sort of funeral. Because crows are known to have funerals for each other. They're very intelligent. And then this last one is just another diptych with that dollhouse. I found it on the street and painted it white. And so that's where I am. Thank you.
Anyone has any questions for Rory?
What kind of digital cameras you use?
I'm working with the Fuji GFX 50R.
Which is that?
It's like a medium format digital sensor. I was working with Mamiya 7 and Mamiya RZs for my film. And the Fuji's like the first digital camera that I actually liked. Felt like it matched the quality. And it's built kind of like a film camera, so that's what made me make the change.
Have you used an iPhone?
Yeah, I mean, I use it every day.
The like 15 or 16, I can't believe how good those pictures are it takes. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
Aside from obviously buying a lot of bird food, birds are interesting in the fact that when they start feeding, you'll get one or two that don't belong in the area or that are a surprise to the area, even so much as in finding a lost parrot. Did you ever get any of those in your neighborhood?
Well, a neighbor's parrot showed up next door, but we haven't really gotten anything too crazy. We get a lot of birds of prey because we get a lot of mourning doves, so they
Like
come in.
swoop in.
Yeah, and we're right by the water too, so we get a lot of eagles. And there was a Cooper's hawk yesterday. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, nothing too out of the ordinary.
Hi, Rory. It seemed like you went from your earlier stage of walking around and trying to find interesting photos to a stage where you're actually posing things. How did that happen, and are you comfortable with that?
Does this one work? No. Okay. It's hard to, I think that, I didn't show a lot of my portraits, but I think there's definitely a parallel between my portraits and the birds. Most of my portraits I'm working with strangers, and so a lot of it for me is about the encounter and the plan and the expectation versus what actually happens when you meet the person. And the space that you photograph in. So I feel like I had some of that. Sorry?
Do you try to control the space?
For portraiture?
And for these, obviously, more so.
These,
For
yeah.
portraiture, yeah. And for portraiture?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Maureen. Hi. Do you see yourself continuing with the birds and the environment? Do you ever see yourself going back to black and white, going back to street at all? What's your next evolution? If you don't mind my asking.
I'm not done with the birds, but I have an unfinished black and white project that I would like to go back to. But beyond that, I don't know. I don't really plan things out. I go by instinct.
I just want to say one thing. I saw a red-winged blackbird there.
Yes.
Very unusual.
They're migratory, so they come in the spring and they leave in the early
By the
fall.
water? Are they by the water mostly?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Marie.
Hi.
I was particularly moved by the very first photograph you showed us, with the vines and the street light at night.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if you saw, in real, while you were standing there, the religious significance of that.
Yes.
And you saw it while you were taking the photograph.
Yes. I remember this. It was freezing. My friend was driving me around. It was around 5 a.m. This is right near Sarah Lawrence. I can't remember the street, but it loops around.
Boulder Trail, Boulder Trail.
Well, yeah, this is Boulder Trail. And this was just there, and we were both immediately like, whoa. That's a crucifix.
Hi, Rory.
Hi.
I'm just wondering how much of the outcome happens in the darkroom for your printing, and also afterwards. What about Audubon? How do you feel about Audubon? Your approach is quite different, but
Yeah.
it's hard not to think about Birds of America.
In terms of the outcome, can you be a little more specific?
Is this as it looked in person, or did you push it in some way?
It really depends on the picture, I would say. Like this one, I mean, the lights are on. It's probably pretty close, but like something like, I mean, this one, like the light is very contrasty, but I'm definitely pushing up so that it's like glowing, and that the shadows are very good. But you know, I'm not stylizing the prints to like an extreme, like some photographers do in the darkroom. They're somewhere between. I mean, they're all balanced, but a little high key. Yeah, and Audubon. I mean, I'm a member, but yeah, no, that's like something I've been kind of grappling with. Is like, am I a bird photographer now? And I don't think I am. Like, I definitely don't fit with. I mean, I follow their ethical guidelines actually, but yeah, I don't really do what they're doing. I think I'm trying something else, but I think I have the same, in a way I have the same mission, but I'm also an artist, so maybe there's something more selfish to me at the end of the day too.
Well, I mean, you're not killing the birds.
No. But yeah, it's like I'm trying to navigate or just negotiate that like art and nature photography, like because I'm obviously coming at it from the artist's perspective, not a naturalist.
Okay, Lord, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just folks, I'm just going to take another minute of your time. We're very lucky to have the Turino family present with us here today, and I would like just to take a moment to introduce David Turino. And we're so appreciative of the Turino family for this wonderful show they provide every year. And we also added to the table a picture of his beautiful mother, Mary B. Turino. So thank you, David. Please come up. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. That was very terrific. My mother would have been so pleased to see all of you in this room, and what a great turnout this event has been. She founded the Bronxville Senior Citizens in the 1970s when I was in junior high school and high school. I remember, hearing about the senior center over and over again. She moved back to Bronxville later in life and was a big active member and an artist and someone who showed in this show. So it's just a great pleasure for me and my family to sponsor this event every year, and thank you for coming.
Thank you all, and I just wanted to acknowledge we have State Senator Shelley Mayer here with us today. Thank you for supporting us, Senator Mayer, and thank you all for coming. This is great attendance. Please join us for a reception out in the lobby. Thank you so much, everybody.